According to St. John, the 18th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Then Pilate entered the headquarters again, summoned Jesus and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus answered, "Do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate replied, "I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done?" And Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here." Pilate asked him, "So you are a king?" And Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." And Pilate asked him, "What is the truth?" After he had said this, he went out to the Jews again and told them, "I find no case against him." The gospel of our Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Please be seated. Christ the King Sunday, the conversation between Pilate and Jesus we just heard. Pilate saying, are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus turning it on him. Can't help but think about what did he mean by saying, "My kingdom is not of this world"? What kind of king was he then? In fact, for that matter, we can wonder about being a king at all, can't we, in our 21st century Western attitudes. You know, with 150 some odd countries in the world, only 40 are governed by monarchs today. And 14 of those are under the monarchy of the Queen of England. Isn't that interesting? I had forgotten Canada was a monarchy, served by a parliament. So a kingdom and the kings, monarchs, are really far from our understanding. In fact, what do we know about kings? Any of you ever live in a kingdom and a monarchy? See, I mean, it just, you. But you're a lawyer. No. Okay, that's true. You know, and that's the way it was for Arve as well. Arve was a 12-year-old, like a lot of 12-year-olds, curious, had all sorts of things going on in his life, was asking a ton of questions constantly. Arve lived in a country and in a remote village where they had not seen the king for a long, long time. In fact, Arve's father had not even ever seen the king, and Arve, as far as they know, no one knew what he looked like, or what he would even do, or what he was. So it was quite interesting and quite exciting when one night over the dinner table, Arve's father, who was a merchant in town, came home all excited because the king was coming. Arve was wondering, well, what difference would that make? And so they were talking about what it meant to be the king, and Arve's father told him the stories about what kings of old had done, and how the king coming to this town would be really wonderful because they would have this huge market, they would have this huge festival, and he would make lots of money. Arve's mother was so excited about it too, she joined the committee. In fact, she joined too, and they had hundreds of meetings just to prepare for the coming of the king. But Arve was still wondering, what was this about? When the day came, Arve went to his father and said, "Father, can I help you in the market?" And no, his father was too busy for that. And Arve's mother was too busy doing other things. So Arve decided he would just find a place to sit on the parade route where he knew that he could see it. He found a shade under a tree, and he sat there waiting. After a short time, a man came by he was a stranger to town, carrying a large sack, had a large burden on his back, and asked Arve if he could sit next to him. And Arve said, "Of course." And they sat there and they started chatting, as people sometimes do before a parade. And Arve was asking all sorts of questions. "Have you ever seen this king? Do you know this king?" And the man just said, "Yes, I know the king." "What is he like? Is he powerful? Is he rich? Is he all of these things?" And the man looked at Arve and said, "What kind of king do you want?" No more had he said that, when there was some loud trumpets that blared and the beginning of the procession took place. And after the musicians went by, there was these very, very stately-looking men in dark robes riding these beautiful horses. And their servants were handing out slips of paper. And as Arve looked at it, he realized that these were the edicts of the king, the laws that they had to follow. And Arve said, well, if these are the edicts of the king, then the king must be there in that group. And he looked over at the man sitting next to him. He says, is the king there? And the man said, nothing. But that group of men were so special to some on that parade route that they decided that they'd join, and they followed those men in those black robes. Then there's another blare of horns, and the tallest horse that Arve had ever seen, pure white, 20 hands tall, came, and the most wonderful looking man in gold and white. And he had saddlebags that were bulging, and he would reach into the saddlebags and throw the money out and throw the coins out into the crowd. And Arve said to the man next to him, this surely must be the king. And the man said nothing. Because he was throwing coins out, of course, there are people who followed. Another blare of horns. And this time they were followed by men in very, very stately-looking, clean white robes. Looking very, very studious, very intelligent, long beards, fancy hats. And they had slips of paper they were handing out. And these were the things that the king wanted people to do as they lived their lives in this small village of Arves. And people saw that this was an interesting group, and many followed them as well. Another loud blare of horns, and this time it was the army. And in the front of the army was this huge stallion with the biggest man Arve had ever seen. And he was followed by his cavalry, and then followed by his footmen. And there were hundreds that followed them. And Arve said to the man sitting next to him, that surely must be the king. And the man said nothing. It was the custom in that town, as it has been the custom for centuries in countries all across the world, that following the army, an active army, there were the stragglers. The ones who we might think of today as collateral damage. There was the widows and the orphans, those who were hurt, those who took care of the army's horses or cooked for the army, did all sorts of things. A sorry lot. And as they passed by, the man sitting next to Arve just stood up, took his pack on his back, and walked into the crowd. Arve was really, really befuddled, bewildered, and upset. Here he had spent the whole day watching this huge parade, and the king wasn't there. And as he fell to the back of the group of stragglers, there were some children there that he started talking to. And he said, well, where's the king? Why hasn't the king come? And one of the children said, but you were sitting next to him. A simple story, but one that lifts up the reality that we, in our own way, even though we are not familiar with kings and monarchs, have to decide, have to choose what kind of king we want. Do we choose those that come out of our imagination, out of our own desires, out of our needs? Or do we choose the reality that the king is the one who came for the widow and the orphan and the marginalized of the world? And let the people say, amen.